Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, what her response is, and it's amazing the cover up from from the legacy corporate media class. There's zero accountability from them, and they continue to just project and continue to blame and talk about Trump nonsensically, as if they have some sort of sick obsession. Play 5.
I want to bring in CNN political analyst and Washington correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman. Maggie, so nice to see you this morning. This matters. Understanding where coronavirus and how the pandemic began matters. A lot of the discussion about the lab leak, I think, was clouded early on because there was the suggestion by some that it was somehow a Chinese weapon that caused this. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a lab accident. But we've come a long way from people dismissing this as a conspiracy theory to a lot of people taking this seriously, Maggie.
We have, John, and look, I do think it's important to remember that part of the issue when this was first being reported on and discussed back a few months after the pandemic had begun was that then President Trump and Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, both suggested they had seen evidence that this was formed in a lab, and they also suggested it was not released on purpose, but they refused to release the evidence showing what it was. And so because of that, that made this instantly political. I think that it was, example 1000 when the Trump administration learned that when you have burned your own credibility over and over again, people are not immediately going to believe you, especially in an election year. However, that does not mean it's not worth discussing. There has been a sort of persistent, albeit relatively quiet, focus on whether that was the origin of the virus, and it is compounded by the fact that there have not been clear answers from Chinese officials about it, and that investigators trying to find out the origin have been stymied. So I do think we're in a different period of this, John, but I also think it's important to remember because I think it's getting reframed in a way that's just not true to what happened. I don't mean here. I mean in this broader debate by Trump supporters about what happened when this was originally raised.
So the media's answer to their malfeasance and their negligence in doing their job is it's your fault. It is somehow the president's fault. Here's the thing, folks. These are investigative journalists. If this is information that cannot be leaked for national security reasons, it can't be leaked. But you guys are investigative journalists, investigative analysts, aren't you? So aren't you supposed to do your job and look into things and just saying, oh, well, it's not true because Trump said it because we hate Trump? They're projecting right now. They're saying, oh, this isn't the true story. Trump told us this, but he didn't say any. Yeah, he didn't tell you guys. Yeah, that's your job. You guys are to investigate and report. That is your job. So what do you want the White House to do your job for you every single day? If this is supposed to be something that has some sort of national security prevalence and it's not able to be said, why is it that you guys couldn't go forward and do your job and investigate something? So you're angry because you guys didn't do your job, months ago or even a full year ago, and now it comes to bite you in the ass, and now you're angry and all you do is project. And then you turn around and say, well, Trump supporters are going to make their own. There's a lot of things going on where they're going to change the narrative on this. No, you guys, and what's even funnier is, it is such projection. She mentions, well, Trump's lied about so many things that he's killed his credibility, this, that. I'm like, no. You guys have lied about so many things that you have killed your own credibility. This is why no one listens to you anymore. If anybody even sees when you go on social media, I remember reading this Wall Street Journal piece. And if you read something that's fact-checked on it, most likely you just don't take the fact-check seriously. Because there's been so many lies. Because these fact-checks now are subjective. They're not fact-based most of the time. It is subjective what your opinion is. They'll fact-check people's opinions now at this point. So the media has lost all credibility. And this is really what their main problem is. And we have a media that, and I'll tell you right now, folks, our epidemic in this country is not of the COVID. It is of communists. We have communism permeating throughout our society. Communism is in almost all of our institutions. In terms of college, higher education, we also have communism in journalism. We have never seen a implicit or a complicit media like we're seeing currently right now, where they only extol more government programs, less individual freedoms and individual rights, where every single late night comedy host, with the exception of Steven Crowder, goes on there and extols big government values, communistic like values. And using the word communist has that negative pejorative to it, People always said, why is it that, you shouldn't say communist because that's not what they really are. And then when you actually look through what their ideology is and what they've been doing this entire time, is you realize they're communists. They're so anti-American. They're antithetical to our existence, these people. They hate America in all aspects. That's why over this past week or so, we've seen so much attacking of Israel, because Israel represents much more of a right-leaning country, a much more of a conservative, independent freedoms and rights. They represent little America, and that's why the media and the Democrat Party is so quick to condemn Israel. So we had the media. They dropped the story. They did a terrible job, and they blame you in response, and they blame the administration in response, and they project. And they say, well, Trump lost all credibility. No, you guys have lost all credibility. Him calling you guys the fake news media, that originally was a left-wing thing, and then Trump adopted it and threw it right back at them. And guess why it worked, folks? Because there was credibility to the claim of them being the fake news media. They've been carrying the water of the Democrat Party now for, a little bit more than 20 years. They've been doing it for a very long time. And Trump's and Rush Limbaugh was really almost like the single soldier of freedom. He stood on the front lines and he fought these guys relentlessly for 30, 40 years. And now we need to step up in his remembrance at this point. We need to step up and we need to do the same. We need to fight these guys vigilantly until our deaths, because we're not going to sit here and live in some sort of communist, totalitarian, authoritarian society. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not doing it. And I'm sure a lot of you folks at home, you don't feel the same way. You do not want to live under some sort of dictator-like rule where you work for the government. You work, and then all your money just goes straight to the government, and then it's redistributed amongst the population of people that don't want to work.